If I didn't have any action camera and had to choose between the HERO12 and the Action 4, I would definitely go for the Action 4. In my opinion, it's the better overall package, at least for what I use it for, which is the same way I use my mirrorless cameras. I usually take my time to adjust all the settings manually for each shot to achieve the absolute best results when it comes to image quality. I only take quick bursts of shots. I don't really do vlogging or action sports. I rarely use automatic settings, and most of the time I shoot in a flat color profile to have the most flexibility in post-production. So now that you know how I use my action cameras, let me explain why I prefer the Action 4. Starting with the design, I prefer the magnetic mount on the Action 4 because it's easier to use compared to the normal GoPro mount, even though it now has a 1/4-inch thread. Next, and this is a very minor thing, I prefer how easy it is to open the battery door and access the microSD card on the Action 4. Furthermore, I prefer having the front touchscreen on the Action 4 for quickly changing settings when the rear screen is not accessible, as well as the battery life. From my experience, the Action 4 has a much better battery life, which is really important for someone like me who only uses one battery. Also, it charges much quicker and has less overheating issues. I think it takes about 20 minutes to charge the Action 4 from 0 to 80%, which is really quick. Moreover, based on my mini overheating test, when filming in 4K 25p in a room temperature of roughly 30 degrees Celsius, the HERO12 only lasted 33 minutes before overheating, whereas the Action 4 lasted about 113 minutes before the battery died. Honestly, in real world scenarios, I never had the HERO11 or HERO12 overheat on me, but I do prefer the better battery life on the Action 4. Next, I also prefer the built-in microphones on the Action 4. They sound fuller and richer. Testing the built-in microphones on the Action 4 and the GoPro HERO12. Testing the built-in microphones on these action cameras. Look at this beautiful view behind me. It's now sunset time. We have a King Kong in here, like a statue, sculpture, however you call it. Additionally, it's much easier to connect an external microphone to the Action 4. You can use a USB-C microphone and plug it directly into the Action 4. Or if you have a microphone with a 3.5mm cable, you can get a simple USB-C to 3.5mm adapter like my Boya BYK4, and it should work just fine. In contrast, with the GoPro, you have to use the expensive media mode. Now, honestly, the media mode is not that bad. It has a decent built-in microphone, a micro HDMI port, and a couple of cold shoe mounts. However, from my experience, it causes the GoPro to glitch a lot. At least it was the case with the HERO11. Moving on, I prefer the easier to navigate menu system on the Action 4. It's much cleaner and more polished. I also find the Action 4 to be more reliable and solid. For example, I have this issue with the HERO12 where when I play back my footage, it looks very choppy on the screen. Additionally, if I shoot in 5.3K 25p, when I start and stop recording, there's a processing icon on the screen for at least 4 or 5 seconds, which is really annoying. So let me show you an example. As you can see, I'm now recording. The camera is set to 5.3K 25p, and look what happens when I stop recording. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Almost like 6 seconds of processing. I don't know exactly what. I never had this issue with the HERO11, and I hope GoPro will fix it in a future firmware update because it's really annoying for someone like me. Like I said, I'm doing mostly like quick bursts of shots. Like I take a shot, then I stop recording and I have to wait like 5 seconds, waiting, and only now I can take another shot. And then if I'm going to stop again, I have to wait. As you can see, it's processing. So long it takes. Also, I prefer the touchscreen on the Action 4. It's almost as smooth as on my iPhone, whereas on the GoPro it's really unpredictable. Sometimes it works fine, sometimes it doesn't respond, or sometimes it just moves too quickly when swiping up and down. Moving on to stabilization, this is where I actually prefer the HERO12. Hypersmooth 6.0 is smoother, more stable, has less artifacts, and works better overall than Rocksteady on the Action 4. The Action 4 is not bad, but when viewing them side by side, I have to give the edge to GoPro. I think they have the best stabilization in the market. they really nailed it with hyper smooth. But at least now you can record gyro data on the Action 4 and stabilize your clips in post with gyro flow, which might yield better stabilization performance. I don't really do it myself, but it's definitely a plus over the Action 3. Moving on, I prefer the field of view of the Action 4. It's slightly wider and also has less distortion than the GoPro. However, if you're planning to buy the max lens mode for the GoPro, then it will have a wider field of view, but it's not something I'm planning to do. Finally, let's talk about image quality. I much prefer the image quality on the Action 4, and here is why. The Action 4 has a 1/1.3 inch 10 megapixel sensor that can shoot up to 4K 120p compared to the 1/1.9 inch 27 megapixel sensor on the HERO12, which can shoot up to 5.3K 60p. You are probably thinking that a higher resolution and a higher megapixel count equal higher quality, but that's not always the case. There are always some trade-offs. The advantage of the Action 4 sensor is that it performs better in low light conditions due to the lower megapixel count. In contrast, the advantage of the HERO12 sensor is that it provides a more detailed image and better photo results thanks to the higher megapixel count. So basically, GoPro provides more detail in the image and better photography results, but it has more noise in the shadows, whereas the Action 4 is much cleaner in the shadows, but it's not as detailed as the GoPro. I personally prefer the approach on the Action 4 because for me it's more important to have cleaner shadows than more detail, and also I don't really care about photography on my action cameras. On top of all that, the Action 4 provides much more accurate colors straight out of the camera than the GoPro, making it super easy to match colors with my Sony ZV-E1 camera. The D-Log M profile is also much less noisy compared to GP-Log, and I prefer the Action 4's manual exposure settings and workflow. It has an exposure meter to judge exposure, a shutter speed that goes up to 1/8000 compared to only 1/400 on the GoPro, and the white balance can be easily locked. Both have very similar dynamic range performance, but some advantages the GoPro has include an HDR mode, which I never really use or care about. It also has an 8:7 aspect ratio sensor, which can make it a bit easier for cropping in post-production, and it offers a 360-degree horizon lock in 4K compared to 2.7K on the Action 4. And if you want more customization, there is also the option to install the GoPro Labs firmware. So in some ways, the GoPro is better. It has a higher resolution sensor, better stabilization performance, Bluetooth audio compatibility, timecode syncing, HDR video, and an 8:7 sensor. However, I still prefer the Action 4 because it's a better camera for me as an overall package. It offers excellent low light performance, accurate colors straight out of the camera, great battery life, high audio quality, an easy to use magnetic mount, less distortion in the widest field of view, and much better reliability performance. Overall, I would not recommend buying the HERO12. If you want a GoPro, buy yourself the HERO11. It's a much better deal in my opinion. It's basically the same camera as this one. Otherwise, buy the Action 4.